This is the brand new 13-inch iPad Pro. It has a new build and one of the best screens ever. It's the fastest chip from Apple and also brand new Apple Pencil, which has its own all-new functionality. I bought it as soon as it came out. It's been a while since Apple has changed the iPad Pro, but besides the spec boost, is this the iPad worth upgrading to? I'm Kevin the Tech Ninja, and let's dive into it. There are two new iPads, the Air and the Pro. Both come in an 11-inch and 13-inch. The 13-inch Pro is Apple's thinnest product. It's thinner than an iPhone, thinner than the Apple TV remote, anything you could think of, it's that thin. And I know nobody was just asking for thinner iPads, but seeing it in person is very impressive, and it's just, once again, like Apple's engineering is just top notch. But once you put it on a keyboard or even a case, you do forget how thin it is. It just becomes a footnote at that point. But I will say this year's Magic Keyboard case feels smaller and lighter than what I've used in the past. So it is easier to carry around. It doesn't feel like you're carrying around a MacBook anymore. It does feel much lighter. And also another upgrade is that new OLED screen. And the technology Apple is using, they actually have two OLED displays here, and this actually gives you more brightness than a traditional OLED. This screen is definitely worth the hype, and I do find myself watching content on this with headphones over my 77-inch display with the surround sound system. It is that good. Even day-to-day things like watching, social media videos or even typing notes or gaming, the pure blacks are easy on the eyes and it makes everything around it just pop even better. The one thing I was excited about with this iPad is to see if this can finally replace a laptop for most people. For me, I know I'm not a normal user and I make videos for a living. I do a lot of 3D printing. I have a lot of unique things that I do daily, but most people don't do those things. And being honest, most people's phones are good enough to be their main computer. From what I see, people are buying computers just for the keyboard and also a bigger screen. But still, their tasks are extremely limited compared to what their computer can actually do. And for those people, an iPad with a keyboard is a great combination. Even if you're on the Android ecosystem, I may even say an iPad with a keyboard is still better than a lot of Android tablets. You have keyboard shortcuts, you have touch controls with haptic feedback, and it feels like a MacBook. It's just a natural transition and it works well. For me, the way I use my iPad is just a good companion. Things I use my MacBook for, maybe I don't need all that power and size at one time. So writing literally this script, typically I'll have my MacBook on the couch or outside on the patio, but now using the iPad, I have a brighter screen, a longer battery, and also a singular app experience which helps cutting down distractions. YouTube TV, when I'm not in the TV watching area or my son has hijacked the TV for Miss Rachel, is better on the iPad. It's a better screen and speakers are great too. And once again, that battery life. I wouldn't quite say I'm better at photo editing on an iPad just yet, but it is more intuitive and it feels more satisfying with the Apple Pencil Pro. I don't get that same sensation with video editing just yet, but I'll talk about video editing a lot later in the video. I also do like using apps more than websites. I do find that apps typically run better for me, but some apps are limited, and that's something you can definitely run into. But I think a lot of the main things you do online will have a solid app, like X, Facebook, Reddit, and obviously Instagram runs better as apps rather than websites. But something like my banking app, it's absolutely horrible on iPad and it looks really bad. And I'd rather use the website for that. So there is definitely trade-offs on both sides. I will say being able to have X open and then Reddit side by side is a really good experience, being able to multitask without dealing with tabs or anything like that. You can also slide away an app too and access it by going to the side of the screen. And this is called slide over. And I think that is pretty good too, if you're monitoring fantasy football or anything like that. So there's some multitasking going on with the iPad, and I find the experience better than a MacBook for those simple things. But that's where the benefits for me personally ends. File management on iPadOS is still a nightmare for me. You do have access to a snapshot of a file structure, but it still feels very restricted. Not all apps allow you to edit off an SSD as well for video. So if you have smaller storage iPad, then space will become at a premium if you're editing larger files. Also, that's one more dongle you need to carry around if you're gonna be using your SD card and loading it on that way. I edit with CapCut and also Final Cut day to day, and CapCut Mobile is limited compared to CapCut Desktop. Functionality, I need a lot more things, and that's not available on the mobile version at all. Final Cut Pro 2 for mobile is very good. There's some AI baked into it that looks fantastic, and it's so impressive how quick it works. The UI is clean, and using an Apple Pencil Pro makes editing much more interactive and maybe easier for some people, but overall for me, I'm still gonna be slower using that. It works great on this version of iPad and also my personal previous version of iPad. However, once again, I feel limited not being able to use my personal LUTs and plugins. It feels like, once again, the hardware can do it, but the software limits it. I know the hardware is amazing on this iPad, and when they do demos, they can render out multiple 4K footages at the same time, and you see a lot of crazy things, and that's what frustrates me. I know it can do it, but the software is the thing that holds it back. And we've been saying this for many, many years now, and it's still something we see. The Apple Pencil Pro has a pretty big update with added more functionality, and it can be used when you're not touching the iPad with this new squeeze functionality. On some apps, you can play and stop videos just by squeezing it. You can also do a new thing called a barrel roll, which is you're writing and start twisting at the same time, and that adds another element to the pencil. And in some supported apps, you can see what tool you're using based on the shadow that is being made. Also, before you touch the screen, you know what you're going to touch, and also you can see the actual tool. So that is great for a lot of artists and people that need to do fine input with the Apple Pencil. But for me, it's not what I use an iPad for, but that functionality is very solid and a well addition to the Apple Pencil, and it just makes the Apple Pencil even better and really steps up against the competition. Oh, I almost forgot, it does have Find My functionality too. So you can easily track it down if you lose it, which is extremely helpful, finding that Apple Pencil. Now, gaming on an iPad is just as good as it's ever been. Apple has been adding more gaming stuff, but it feels like we're still waiting for the game to have. We're still waiting for that. Once again, great hardware, but we don't have that one game that is like, I gotta have that game. I do think it's coming, but it's not there just yet. But seeing ray tracing and seeing all this like high-end tech in the iPad and with this great screen, it has potential for it. Don't get me wrong, I love this iPad Pro. The hardware is great, the screen is better than I expected, and it can replace the computer for most people. If you get a USB monitor, and you can use this thing as a full-fledged desktop if you want. But this lends the question, when looking at price and you add the Magic Keyboard and you add the Pencil Pro, you know, at that point, should you just buy a MacBook Air? Like, can you do more? Like, you can do more with a MacBook Air, but then it's like, do you need to do more? And what does more look like to you? And that is kind of the conundrum that you're always in. And I definitely think this is good enough for most people to be their only computer. But for me, or for like real professionals, I think this is better as a companion piece. But of course, those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts? I have another video right here popping up about the new iPad release that I want you to watch. Kevin the Tech Ninja, have a wonderful day. Peace.